ladies and gents, it's your girl Samantha here, and I just wanted to report a story that I saw. It was published 23 hours ago, and it's from ABC News. It says, Mom is fatally shot at memorial for son who was killed days earlier. So, Delisa Tucker was just steps away from her son's memorial early Wednesday morning when she was fatally shot. She had lost 14-year-old Kevin Tinker to gun violence the Sunday before, and friends said she was tending to his memorial when she was gunned down. While she was lighting candles for her son, her life was taken, wrote Michelle Tharp, a family friend on the GoFundMe page set up to help pay the family's funeral expenses. This world is so cold. Police responded to a shot spotter alert at around 12:15 a.m. and found Tucker, 31, lying on a sidewalk in the 200 block of West 110th Place. She was transported to Roseland Hospital and pronounced dead, according to officials. They reported finding no one on the block who saw the shooting, and no one's been taken into custody for that attack or the one on her son. On Sunday, her son was shot several times at the exact same location, so heartbreaking, and pronounced dead on the scene, according to police. He was a quiet boy, Tharp wrote in the GoFundMe page. Rest well, little Kevin. CPD, or Chicago Police Department, said investigations for both shootings are ongoing. Chicago police declined to comment on whether the shootings are connected, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. Tucker leaves behind 5 other children, according to Tharp. Shootings have spiked in Chicago this year, according to CPD crime data. As of November 8th, there have been 3,105 incidents in 2021 alone, an increase of 10% over 2020, and a 66% increase compared with 2019. Rest in peace to this woman who was gunned down like a dog, so Delisa Tucker, and rest in peace to her son, Kevin Tinker. This is really heartbreaking, guys. I had to report the story because it really bothered me that not only did this mother lose a child to gun violence just a week prior to her own murder, and in the same location, and then she's a mom of 5 other children who now don't have a mom. So some people in the comments were asking about like BLM, where's Black Lives Matter? I actually kind of agree. I do think that we definitely should just bring more awareness to these types of killings as well. And I would honestly like to see more surveillance, something else that will help get these criminals off the streets, because I know people are afraid to quote unquote snitch or speak out, probably because of fear of retaliation, for good reason, because these people obviously who are doing these killings do not have any type of value for life. So I'm sure they wouldn't blink one eye, they wouldn't hesitate to take another life if that meant they felt like that could keep them out of prison. So I think that cameras, as we've seen with our smartphones, have played a large role in getting justice for victims. So I think that's just something to think about. I know in England, I want to say it's in England, they have a lot of CCTV all around England. So like when crimes are committed, the cops can usually use the videos cameras to get the evidence and tell the story of what they need to put somebody behind bars. And I think this is where we're going to have to get to, because we just seem like we don't have enough eyewitnesses or enough people willing to speak out for fear for their own lives. And I can completely understand that. So let me know what you guys think about that suggestion. I propose that to someone, as far as like, putting up more cameras in neighborhoods, to create like a kind of like a neighborhood watch, like let, killers and crooks and thieves and rapists, etc., let them know like this neighborhood is being surveillanced or monitored, because I've seen those signs before around, just driving around, the city or wherever I'm driving around. And so I think that would be like a nice deterrent. Just let people know, don't come in our neighborhood acting crazy, or in our communities acting crazy, because we're watching you. There's always eyes on you. And I think that really would help curb some of the violence that happens in our communities. We really have to try to think of solutions to stop the killings. This is just beyond gone too far, and I'm really so heartbroken having to read these stories, but I want these stories to be told so that we can try to find solutions. I don't want this to be swept under the rug and allow, our silence allows the bad guys and bad women, whomever, to the bad people to continue to terrorize the innocent and the people who are just out living their daily lives and not bothering anybody. She was there tending to her son's memorial, and people were asking, why is she out at midnight and blah, blah, blah. She should be able to go out at midnight and not worry about being murdered at her son's memorial. She should be able to go light candles at her son. Maybe she felt like she just wanted to go be where she felt her son's spirit was. Maybe she wanted to make sure candles stayed lit the whole time in honor of him. Like, she shouldn't have to explain. We should be able to move freely and have free agency, like whether you're a woman or a man or a child. And people constantly are blaming victims for just living their lives, like they're not bothering anyone. And instead of blaming the bad people for what they're doing to terrorize others, we look at the victims like, well, you shouldn't have did this, you shouldn't have. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, no, get the bad guys and the bad women, whomever committing these crimes who are bad, get them off the streets. They should not be allowed to breathe the same air we breathe, to walk amongst us freely. They have lost that right. They've lost that right. They have to go. And I'm a huge believer in eye for an eye. It's like, you take a life, they probably took 2 lives right in this case alone. And maybe more. Why should you get to still be alive? This is when I believe in the death penalty. Like, if you have irrefutable evidence and facts that this person did this, which again would be why we would need more surveillance, more cameras to see like footage and just as much evidence as we can get. So once you're like definitively sure this person did this, should our taxpayer dollars really continue to pay for you to be in prison eating food and pooping and living and breathing? Like, no. Why? You've already proven yourself to be a menace to society, a complete waste of space. Why are you still getting to live life? And this includes people like George Zimmerman. Like, why is he still walking around free? It's just such a waste of air. So this is a story that I felt could be promising, a solution to all the violence that's happening within our communities. Primarily, I would say Black communities and probably Hispanic communities. I know there's also white on white crime, but I don't know if it's done in the same way necessarily. They do like a lot of mass shootings. I know they do a lot of domestic violence type shootings. These are more, this is more happening for areas where it's like a lot of gang activity. So let's just jump right in. So it says, lessons from a violence interrupter as shootings continue to ravage Chicago. Reggie Woods was part of the problem. Now he's on the front lines of prevention. So this is a 26-minute read. So I'm going to try to jump through a lot of the backstory. He basically lost his brother when he was 19. His brother was in his late 20s, I want to say. And then he just went off the deep end, started getting into more trouble until he had his daughter, made him want to change his life. So now they have here a program that he now takes part in, and they call it Ceasefire, I believe. Let me try to get to the beginning of it. So he calls himself a violence interrupter. He's on the front lines of prevention as a street outreach worker, and he works to prevent violence. And he's part of a violence prevention team at UCAN Chicago, a social services organization that serves youth. So amid the COVID-19 pandemic, shootings have spiked in the city, according to Chicago Police Department crime statistics. I already told you guys where the data is as far as the shootings, etc. Again, I'm trying to keep this video not too long. Woods' job is to diffuse and mediate conflicts that could escalate into shootings, teach young people about alternatives to gun violence, and connect them with resources that the social services organization offers to ease some of the hardships they endure. We've located hotspots in our community where we canvass daily, and we do on-site mediations and put out fires before they get started on the front end, Woods told ABC News. The violence interrupter model started in Chicago in 1995, and over the past 15 years, it has been adopted by major cities across the country. Some advocates have argued that community-based prevention efforts should replace police, while others see them as complementary. But has this approach worked? According to experts who study and evaluate solutions to gun violence, research shows that the concept is promising, but challenges persist when it comes to implementation and funding. However, a consistent merit of the model is the value of the violence interrupters themselves. So Woods is from a neighborhood of North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago, where 46% of the population has a household income of $25,000 or less, according to American Community Survey data. According to CPD crime statistics, gun violence has been on the rise in the district that includes North Lawndale. Woods said that while he was growing up in the 1980s and early 1990s, the crack epidemic hit the city and gangs ruled the streets. He was the youngest of 7 children. And I already told that story. His older brother was his best friend, and he was shot down in his late 20s when Reggie was a teenager. Okay. He eventually ended up going to prison himself for an attempted triple homicide with a firearm at age 18. Around the time Woods was released from prison, Ceasefire, the first violence interruption program, launched in Chicago. It was based on a public health approach to gun violence prevention that was developed by epidemiologist Gary Slutkin in 1995. Slutkin argued that former gang members and individuals who had gone through the criminal justice system like Woods could help change the behavior of some of the most high-risk individuals. Those who own weapons, have gone through the criminal justice system in the past, or have affiliations with gangs or groups that engage in criminal activity. Violence interrupters are from the same streets, grew up in the same areas, and had the same experiences as young people. And so they just have more access means influence, said Jeffrey Butts, director of these names are crazy, but anyways, director of the Research and Evaluation Center at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. The possibility of influencing someone's behavior and attitude is stronger if you come at them as an equal, which I absolutely agree. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Ceasefire deployed former gang members into targeted communities to convince gang leaders to urge followers to stop shooting each other, according to Daniel Webster, director of the Center for Gun Policy and Research at Johns Hopkins University. A lot of the violence had been very group-to-group kind of violence, Webster said, explaining that Ceasefire outreach workers were able to get some gang leaders to call a truce by convincing them it was in their best interest. The underlying motivation had to do with drug profits, Webster said. If you keep shooting people, it's going to mess up your business. You're going to get more law enforcement in here. It's going to scare away your customers, so get your people to stop it. A 2009 evaluation of the program sponsored by the National Institute of Justice found that Ceasefire has a significant positive impact on many of the neighborhoods in which the program was implemented, including a decline of 16 to 28% in the number of shootings in 4 of the 7 sites studied. So, Woods was one of the interrupters responsible for that, which is awesome. Renea Woods, the late daughter of Reggie Woods. Oh, my goodness. It's just super sad. He said that the birth of his daughter, Renea, in November 1997 was a turning point for him. And although he was set to spend the next 5 years in prison, he vowed to change his life. While he was incarcerated, he earned his GED and a college degree, and when he was released from prison in 2002, he became involved in peacemaking in his neighborhood. I was just on the streets trying to steer kids away from killing each other and getting caught up in the way I got caught up, he said. When he learned of the Ceasefire program, he became an official violence interrupter, but when the program lost funding, an ongoing challenge for many sites, Woods encountered outreach workers from UCAN and has been working with them for the past 4 years. He said that his life experience is what helps him relate and connect with high-risk youth. I grew up with their fathers ran the streets with me, so being a credible messenger in my own right, their mothers and fathers understood what life I lived, he said. They're more willing to give their kids to me to help them. The first step of a violence interrupter is to identify high-risk individuals in the community, according to Frank Perez, the leader of the violence intervention team at UCAN. So they're going over how the program works. We have these 7 or 8 different categories that tell us this is the right type of individual that we need to go after, he said, including someone who was known to be a known gang member, someone who was known to be a weapons carrier, someone who was known to be involved in high-risk activity in the streets, drug dealing, gambling, things of that nature. After making the connection, a violence interrupter serves as a mediator to help solve conflicts between community members, Wood said. That is an area where the team has been successful, Perez said, but added that it's difficult to quantify. We do these things called mediations where we're able to disrupt stuff on the front end and help or stop a retaliation to something bad that's already happened, Perez said. And as a researcher, you really can't quantify that stuff because I can tell you that I had 70 mediations, but how do I add something that didn't turn into gun violence? In order to motivate clients to stay connected with UCAN staff, violence interrupters connect individuals with case managers who meet with them to determine what kind of help they may need, from food and health care to finding a job, and how researchers UCAN offers can assist them. It has to become much more challenging to work with the violence interruption model over the past decade. Or it says it has become much more challenging to work with the violence interruption model over the past decade, Webster said, because gangs don't have the same kind of influence. And many of the disputes are personal and taking place on social media, making them more difficult to track or mediate. It's just a lawless situation. Right now, it's just basically every man for himself in Chicago, Wood said, explaining that gangs which had influence over large swaths of the population have splintered off into a lot of cliques with no structure and no clear leadership. According to Perez, there are at most a dozen violence interrupters working in the neighborhood of North Lawndale, which has a population of nearly 34,000, and about the same number work in Roseland, which has a population of about 45,000. Both neighborhoods are in districts where shooting incidents have continued to surge for the past 4 years, according to CPD crime statistics. One of the pitfalls to this work is I don't think we can reach everybody, Wood said. I think we're going to be able to reach them one at a time. To get to everybody, we're going to have to do a lot more work. This just came out. It says at least 43 people shot, 6 fatally in violent Chicago weekends. So it's in Baltimore, where the majority of shootings are motivated by personal disputes. The staff at Safe Streets, a program also modeled after ceasefire, is facing similar challenges. Rashawn Singletary, the Associate Director of Gun Violence Prevention in Baltimore's Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, said that although Safe Streets has been able to grow from 4 sites to 10 sites with additional funding from the city, the 10 sites only reach 2.6 miles of Baltimore, a city that spans 92 miles of Maryland. Webster, who has led evaluations of Safe Streets since its launch in 2007, said that a 2012 study published by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health found that Safe Streets workers were successful at reducing gun violence in 3 of 4 neighborhoods where sites were established. Although results of a 2015 evaluation were more mixed, Webster said another finding was that young people in neighborhoods with violence interruption programs were less likely to believe gun violence was an acceptable way to respond to conflict. According to Butts, this key measure of success was also found in a 2017 evaluation of violence interrupter programs in New York City. We're not even very good at funding and managing these programs, and yet we're still seeing effects, Butts said. Just imagine what we could do if we got serious about managing them and implementing them properly. And I agree. I think, if they really could get the budget, the money, and actually be able to get the manpower even, or woman power, the people to volunteer and really implement this program correctly, I really do think it would make a huge impact, because I think a lot of times people choose violence to solve their disputes because they don't know any other way. That's all they know, and I think people coming into their lives, especially someone who says, hey, I was like you once, I know what you're going through, this is other ways you can resolve these disputes, you don't have to kill one another. I think that definitely could give people, like young people, like options, and see that there are other alternatives to resolving problems than just picking up a gun. So despite the fact that their jobs are dangerous and demanding, the salaries of violent, oh, that's great, they're getting paid. So I was like, I hope they're not doing this for free, because we have bills to pay, that's just a reality of it. So the salaries of violence interrupters are abysmally low, which is disgraceful. And this is what we mean by defund the police. Like, they get way too much money, and I feel like they're not really effective, because if they were, there wouldn't be so much crime in our communities. So I feel like they need to spread some of that money to other social programs, and work collectively to rid Black communities of these crimes and just other communities, like other disenfranchised communities, like Native American communities, Hispanic communities, poor communities, white trailer park communities. Like, just get rid of the crime. We have so many people locked up. We shouldn't still have these high ass numbers of crime. We just shouldn't. It's like, what are you doing wrong? All you're doing is locking people up, and that clearly that's not working. So why do we need the cops to have so much money when all they do is lock people up and it's still not working? We need to do more than just that, because the problem is falls in so many different areas. We need to come at it from different angles. It can't just come from like law enforcement all the time. It could be social worker that they need, a therapist, they need violence interrupters, etc. It's a plethora of things, and it's not just let's put all of our money in one basket, so to speak, put all our eggs in one basket, and then throw our hands up and wonder why there's still all these shootings every weekend. It's ridiculous. So Webster said they often live in neighborhoods where poverty and gun violence are rampant. As a violence interrupter, you're going to work in one of the most dangerous cities in America. You're going to work in some of the most violent neighborhoods in that city, he said. And you're going to connect with the most risky people who might shoot or be shot. And your job is to keep them from shooting each other. And we're not going to give you a badge or a gun. Over the past year, this reality hit home for the staff at Safe Streets. Dante Barksdale is Safe Streets outreach coordinator, and Kenyelle Benny Wilson, a Safe Streets violence interrupter, were shot and killed. So this is what I was afraid of. Were shot and killed in separate incidents in January and July. Why would anybody do this to them? Ugh. This is the worst type of crime to me. Like, someone's trying to help you. They are an activist. They're trying to make life better for the black community, and they end up getting killed. It makes me sick. So they were beloved and longtime members of the team who had devoted their lives to reducing gun violence. We were devastated. It was very traumatizing. It's very difficult to say their names or to think of them and to not feel that consistent void in our hearts, because they were definitely the individuals who impacted the community in such an incredible way, Singletary said. And for them to lose their lives for the same thing that we try to save thousands of lives from, it was very, very disheartening and tragic. We really need to get more therapy and mental health and more jobs. So a few years ago, Woods experienced a tragedy of his own. His firstborn daughter, Rania, whose birth inspired him to change his life, was killed in Indianapolis in 2016. She was 18, about the same age Woods was when she was born. That's heartbreaking. He said, losing my daughter made me more driven to reach more parents, to try to help more families not to go through what I went through. He said, explaining that although Rania was not killed by gun violence, the pain of losing a child to violence is the same. Asked if he has felt unsafe while on the job, Wood said that to be a violence interrupter, you've got to have thick skin. I don't think I'd be effective at my job if I was scared, he said. I think the only thing that I wish I could do better is to get some more of these kids and have more resources to give them. As far as being scared of them, no. Most of these kids are scared of themselves. And that is the truest statement I have read so far in this article. These are just kids, and they are scared, and they're out here trying to act tough. And that's why a lot of times they're overcompensating by killing and having a gun. Just so sad. Rest in peace to his daughter, Rania. I think it was, his last name was Wilson. Just heartbreaking. Rania Woods. He's out here doing the work. And this article is from ABC News. November 9th, 2021 is when it was published. But her father, Reggie Woods, is out here doing his work, and his own daughter is killed. And it's just sad. No parent should ever bury their child. And especially someone who just seems like such a good person. He's turning his life around, and then this happens to him. So it's just really heartbreaking. As well as rest in power to the two activists, or two individuals who were trying to make things better. Dante Barksdale and Kenyelle Benny Wilson. Oh. So sad. So, again, let me know what you guys think about these articles that I read. The first one with the mother that was gunned down while at her child's memorial. And then, so one possible solution to the gun violence in the black communities. I used to live in Baltimore. That's actually where my kid's father is from. So this definitely hits home for me. And it really should hit home for anyone who is black. You know, you should be able to resonate with someone who looks like you being impoverished and feeling like picking up a gun or selling drugs are their only options. And as the people who built this country, you know, we're the descendants of those people. We deserve so much more. We deserve to have such a better life than this. And so these stories you should be able to relate to them. It's not, oh, not my problem because I'm in the suburbs. It's everyone's problem. It's everybody's problem. It's America's problem. A black problem is America's problem. Because America created Negroes. They took us out of Africa and created Negroes. So they created this gangster ghetto culture, and now they want to act like, where did this come from? How is this happening? You know why it's here, and you need to fix it. You need to give them the funding they need, give them the resources they need to implement these programs. We need to be putting up more cameras to help catch the bad people. And there's just going to be a lot of different things out there that's going to offer solutions to. We just have to really start talking and getting some things in action, because we can't keep losing lives like this. Is just so senseless. So let me know what you guys think about these two stories. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.